My name is Curtis Holloway, 67 years old, and I still wake up every morning expecting to get a call from my daughter Sophia. But 3 months ago, she died in what police called an accident. I knew better. At the will reading, my son-in-law Adam inherited $116 million and their beach mansion, while I got an old cabin worth practically nothing. 2 days after I arrived at that cabin, what I discovered made Adam's house fill with police. She did it to protect me until the very end. If you are watching this right now, I would appreciate knowing where you are tuning in from. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons too. My story might save someone else from the heartbreak I experienced. Sophia came into this world on a stormy April night in 1989. Her mother, Margaret, had been in labor for 22 hours, and when they finally placed that tiny bundle in my arms, I made a promise that I would protect her with everything I had. She was the spitting image of her mother, with those deep brown eyes that could see straight through to your soul. From the beginning, Sophia was exceptional. She walked at 9 months, spoke in complete sentences by 18 months, and by the time she was 5, she was already reading chapter books meant for middle schoolers. But it was never just her intelligence that made her special. Sophia had a heart bigger than Texas. When she was 7, she gave her entire allowance to a homeless man outside the grocery store. At 10, she organized a neighborhood cleanup that spread across 3 blocks. She was always thinking about how to make the world better for everyone. I raised her mostly on my own after Diana lost her battle with breast cancer 15 years ago. Sophia was 21 then, in her 3rd year of college studying computer science. The loss nearly broke both of us, but somehow we became even closer through our grief. Every Sunday without fail, she would drive to my place for dinner. I would make Diana's lasagna recipe, the only dish I could cook properly, and Sophia would bring dessert. Those dinners were sacred to us. Dad, she told me during one of those Sunday meals, I want to create software that actually helps people who need it most, not just another app to make rich people more money. That was Sophia, always thinking about others. She graduated top of her class and immediately turned down lucrative offers from the big tech companies. Instead, she started her own small firm developing software for nonprofit organizations serving vulnerable populations. Her programs helped domestic violence shelters manage their resources more efficiently, helped food banks distribute supplies to those most in need, and created anonymous reporting systems for human trafficking victims. Technology should serve humanity, not the other way around, she would say, her eyes lighting up the way they always did when she talked about her work. It was at a tech conference 5 years ago that Sophia met Adam Porter. She was presenting her latest project, a secure communication platform for abuse survivors. Adam was there representing his venture capital firm. He approached her afterward, claiming to be impressed with her vision. Adam was everything Sophia was not. Where she was warm and open, he was calculated and reserved. Where she prioritized social impact, he focused on profit margins and market share. He was 35 to her 30, handsome in that polished corporate way with perfectly tailored suits and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. There is something about him I do not quite trust, Sophia, I told her after meeting him at a dinner she had arranged for us. He seems to be performing rather than being genuine. She laughed it off. Dad, you think every man who shows interest in me is suspicious. Adam appreciates my work. He sees the potential for scale and impact. On paper, Adam was impressive. Harvard MBA, successful investments in multiple tech startups, connections with the Silicon Valley elite. He had the kind of credentials that opened doors everywhere. He was charming when he needed to be, especially with Sophia. But I noticed how he would subtly redirect her ideas, how he would interrupt her when she was speaking, how his compliments often contained hidden criticisms. Their courtship was fast. 6 months after meeting, they were engaged. The wedding was lavish, held at an exclusive resort in Napa Valley. I remember watching Sophia during the ceremony, searching for the unbridled joy I had always imagined would be on her face when she got married. Instead, I saw something closer to determination, as if she were steeling herself for a challenge rather than embarking on a journey of love. After the wedding, things changed gradually. Our Sunday dinners became less regular. First, they were rescheduled because of Adam's business trips. Then they were canceled altogether due to unexpected meetings. When we did get together, Adam was usually present, dominating the conversation with stories about his latest deals or connections with famous investors. Sophia grew quieter in his presence. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed. She stopped sharing details about her work. When I asked about her projects, she would give vague answers before Adam jumped in to talk about how he was helping her professionalize her approach. 3 years into their marriage, I barely recognized my daughter. Her clothing had changed from comfortable, practical pieces to designer labels Adam approved of. Her formerly wild curly hair was now always straightened and styled. She had lost weight, her face appearing gaunt rather than healthy. Our last real conversation happened 2 months before her death. She had managed to come to Sunday dinner alone, claiming Adam was on a business trip to Tokyo. "Dad," she said, pushing her lasagna around on her plate, "do you ever think about what Mom would do in difficult situations? I find myself wondering that a lot lately." "All the time, sweetie," I replied, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. "Your mother had an incredible moral compass. She always knew the right thing to do, even when it was hard." Sophia nodded, blinking back tears. "I think I have made some mistakes, Dad. Big ones." When I asked her to explain, she shook her head. "I cannot talk about it yet, but I will. Soon." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Just know that I love you more than anything, and everything I do, every decision I make, is with that love in mind." That was the last time I saw my daughter alive and truly speaking her mind. 2 weeks later, at our next dinner, Adam came along. Sophia barely spoke. When I hugged her goodbye at the door, she whispered, "Check the cabin soon." Before I could ask what she meant, Adam whisked her away to their waiting car. The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. I remember glancing at the clock as I fumbled for the receiver, my heart already racing. Late-night calls never bring good news. "Mr. Holloway?" an unfamiliar voice said. "This is Officer Martinez with the San Francisco Police Department. There has been an accident involving your daughter, Sophia Porter. She has been taken to San Francisco General Hospital. You should come right away." The 20-minute drive to the hospital was the longest of my life. My hands shook on the steering wheel as scenarios flashed through my mind. A broken arm, perhaps, or a concussion. Nothing prepared me for what awaited. I ran through the emergency room doors, desperately searching for someone who could tell me about Sophia. A solemn-faced doctor approached me, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Holloway? I am Dr. Winters. I am very sorry to inform you that your daughter was pronounced dead on arrival. Her injuries were too severe. We did everything we could." The world tilted beneath my feet. I grabbed the wall to steady myself, certain I had misheard. No, that cannot be right. There must be some mistake. But there was no mistake. Sophia had been driving home from her office when her car went off the road on a sharp curve along the coastal highway, crashing through the guardrail and falling nearly 100 feet onto the rocks below. "She died on impact," they said. Adam arrived at the hospital 30 minutes after me, dressed immaculately despite the hour. His expression was somber, but his eyes were dry. He spoke with the doctor in hushed tones, nodding periodically. Not once did he break down. Not once did he show the raw grief that was tearing me apart. "The police said it appeared to be a brake failure," he informed me clinically, as if discussing a business transaction rather than the death of his wife. "These things happen sometimes. Mechanical failures. No one to blame." But something did not add up. Sophia was meticulous about car maintenance. Just 3 weeks earlier, she had mentioned taking her car for a complete service check. The next morning, I spoke with Detective Jackson, who had been assigned to investigate the accident. He seemed strangely dismissive of my questions. "Mr. Holloway, I understand you are grieving, but sometimes an accident is just an accident," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The initial inspection suggests a brake line failure." "Was there any sign of tampering?" I asked. Detective Jackson shifted uncomfortably. There were some unusual aspects to the brake line damage, but that could be explained by the impact of the crash. Before I could press further, he was called away. As I waited in the station, I overheard Adam on his phone in a nearby room, his voice uncharacteristically animated. "Yes, the policy is still valid. 5 million. No, there will not be any issues with the claim. The police have ruled it an accident." A pause. "The old man? He is not a problem. He has no idea." Funeral arrangements moved at lightning speed, with Adam taking control of every detail. When I suggested waiting a bit longer before the service to allow Sophia's college friends from the East Coast to attend, he shut me down. "We need closure, Curtis. Sophia would want us to move forward quickly." The guest list was tightly controlled. Many of Sophia's colleagues from her nonprofit work were conspicuously absent. When I mentioned inviting Lauren, Sophia's best friend since college, Adam claimed they had had a falling out months ago. "She would not be welcome, Curtis. Sophia would not want her there." The day before the funeral, I visited the funeral home alone to have a private moment with my daughter. As I sat beside her casket, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There, just visible beneath the sleeve of her dress, was a pattern of bruises encircling her wrist. They looked like finger marks, as if someone had grabbed her forcefully. When I mentioned this to the funeral director, he seemed nervous. "Sometimes bruising can occur during the embalming process, Mr. Holloway. Nothing to be concerned about." But I knew better. Those were not embalming artifacts. Those were the marks of violence. The funeral itself was a surreal affair. Adam played the part of the grieving widower perfectly, accepting condolences with a practiced expression of sorrow. Yet I noticed how quickly he steered conversations away from questions about the accident, how efficiently he managed to keep me separated from Sophia's few work colleagues who had been allowed to attend. Within a week of the funeral, Adam began clearing out Sophia's belongings. Her clothes were donated. Her home office was dismantled. When I asked if I could have her laptop or personal journals as keepsakes, he informed me that they had already been taken care of. Sophia was very private about her work, Curtis. Some of her projects involved confidential client information. It would not be appropriate to keep those things around. Each day brought new reasons to suspect that Sophia's death had been no accident. But I had no proof, only the growing certainty in my gut that my daughter had been silenced. 2 weeks after the funeral, I received a call from attorney Harold Feldman, instructing me to come to his office for the reading of Sophia's will. I was surprised she had prepared one so young, but given her methodical nature, perhaps I should not have been. The office was located in a sleek downtown high-rise, all glass and chrome. Adam was already seated when I arrived, engaged in a hushed conversation with Feldman that stopped abruptly when I entered. "Mr. Holloway, please have a seat," Feldman said, adjusting his glasses nervously. "We are here to review the last will and testament of Sophia Porter, née Holloway." I noticed a thin sheen of sweat on the attorney's forehead, despite the cool temperature of the office. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the document folder. "I will begin with the distribution of assets," he stated, clearing his throat. "To my husband, Adam Porter, I leave all financial assets, including but not limited to bank accounts, investment portfolios, stocks, bonds, and cryptocurrency holdings, totaling approximately $116 million. My jaw dropped. I had no idea Sophia had amassed such wealth. Her nonprofit work had always seemed modestly funded, and she lived comfortably, but not extravagantly, before marrying Adam. Additionally, Feldman continued, "Adam Porter shall retain full ownership of our primary residence in Malibu, valued at $20 million, along with all vehicles, artwork, and household furnishings therein." Adam sat impassively, as if the announcement of this enormous inheritance was nothing more than expected. There was not even a flicker of surprise on his face. To my father, Curtis Holloway, Feldman read, his voice dropping slightly. I leave the family cabin in Boundary Waters, Minnesota, along with its contents and the surrounding 5 acres of land. That was it. An old cabin that had belonged to Diana's family, which we had visited perhaps a dozen times during Sophia's childhood. It had been sitting unused for years, its value negligible compared to the fortune Adam had just inherited. Is that all? I asked, unable to keep the shock from my voice. Feldman nodded, avoiding my gaze. That concludes the distribution of assets. When was this will drafted? I asked. The final version was signed and notarized 2 months ago, Feldman replied. It superseded a previous will from 3 years ago. 2 months ago. Around the time Sophia had come to dinner alone and mentioned making mistakes. Around the time she started appearing more anxious and withdrawn. I would like to see the previous will, I requested. I am afraid that is not possible, Adam interjected smoothly. Once superseded, the previous document is legally irrelevant. After the meeting, Adam approached me in the parking lot. His expression was sympathetic, but his eyes remained cold. Curtis, I know you must be disappointed, but Sophia understood the value of keeping business assets unified. The cabin meant a lot to her sentimentally. She wanted you to have something personal. What happened to her software company? I asked. The non-profit work was her passion. Oh, that. Adam waved dismissively. Most of it was absorbed into my ventures months ago. The rest was shuttered after initial assessment, not financially viable. As he turned to leave, he paused. The cabin is quite remote, Curtis. At your age, it might be best to sell it. I know a developer who might be interested. For the right price. There was something threatening in his tone, a subtle warning I could not quite decipher. Before I could respond, he was gone, sliding into his sleek black Tesla and pulling away without a backward glance. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, trying to make sense of what had happened. The distribution seemed so wildly uneven, so unlike the fair-minded daughter I had raised. Something was very wrong. As I finally prepared to drive home, a tap on my window startled me. A young woman with short red hair stood beside my car. I recognized her as Lauren Taylor, Sophia's best friend from college, whom Adam had claimed was unwelcome at the funeral. Mr. Holloway, she said as I lowered the window, I have been trying to reach you. I am so sorry about Sophia. Lauren, I replied, genuinely glad to see her. Adam told me you and Sophia had a falling out. Her eyes widened in surprise. That is absolutely not true. We spoke nearly every week. In fact, I was supposed to meet her the day after Her voice broke. After the accident. She said she had something important to show me. Something about Adam. We moved to a nearby coffee shop, where Lauren shared information that chilled me to the bone. Sophia was scared, Mr. Holloway. The last few months, she was researching divorce lawyers, but very discreetly. She told me Adam had been monitoring her calls and emails. She bought a burner phone, just so we could talk safely. Did she say why she wanted a divorce? I asked. Lauren nodded grimly. She said she had discovered some things about Adam's business dealings that terrified her. And she hesitated. She mentioned that his behavior had become increasingly controlling, sometimes physically intimidating. The bruises on Sophia's wrist flashed in my mind. Did he hurt her, Lauren? She never said it directly, but once, during a video call, I noticed bruises similar to what you described from the funeral home. When I asked about them, she changed the subject immediately. Before we parted, Lauren mentioned one more critical detail. About 3 months ago, Sophia asked me to help her move some equipment to a secure location. We took several computers and hard drives to the family cabin. She said it was the one place Adam would never think to look. That night, I checked my old voicemails, scrolling back months. There it was, from 10 weeks ago, a message I had somehow missed. Dad, it is Sophia. I need to show you something important at the cabin. It is the only place I know is safe. Please call me back on this number only. Love you." The next morning, I packed my car and headed north, toward Boundary Waters and the old cabin that now represented my daughter's final gift to me. The drive to northern Minnesota took 2 full days. With each mile, the urban sprawl gave way to increasingly dense forest, until finally I turned onto the gravel road leading to the cabin. It had been almost 7 years since my last visit, shortly after Diana passed. Sophia and I had scattered some of her ashes in the lake nearby, a place where we had spent many happy summers as a family. The cabin stood much as I remembered it, a sturdy 2-bedroom structure, built of weathered logs, with a stone chimney rising from the center of the sloped roof. The surrounding pines had grown taller, casting longer shadows across the small clearing. At first glance, it appeared untouched by time, preserved in the amber of memory. But as I approached, I noticed subtle signs that someone had been there recently. The padlock on the shed was newer than I remembered. The porch had been swept clear of pine needles, and there, barely visible in the soft earth near the steps, was a small footprint that could only have belonged to Sophia. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door, pushing it open on creaking hinges. The musty scent of disuse mingled with something else, a faint trace of the lavender perfume Sophia always wore. She had been here, and recently. Inside, the cabin was mostly as I remembered, rustic and simple. A stone fireplace dominated the main room, flanked by a worn leather sofa and 2 reading chairs. The kitchen was basic, with an old gas stove and a refrigerator that hummed loudly. 2 small bedrooms and a bathroom completed the layout. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. But as I moved through the space, I noticed small details that told a different story. A coffee mug in the dish drainer, a neatly folded blanket that had not been there before, books rearranged on the shelves, and everywhere, if I looked closely enough, the invisible presence of my daughter, her fingerprints a ghost story written on every surface she had touched. I methodically searched each room, looking for whatever Sophia had wanted me to find. The bedrooms yielded nothing unusual. The kitchen cabinets contained only the expected supplies. It was in the main room, as the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, that I noticed something odd about the bookshelf. One section of books protruded slightly farther than the rest. When I tried to push them back, I felt resistance. Removing the books revealed a section of the back panel that seemed newer than the surrounding wood. I pressed against it, and with a soft click, a hidden compartment swung open. Inside was a waterproof case, about the size of a small suitcase. My heart hammering in my chest, I carefully removed it and placed it on the coffee table. The combination lock was set to Sophia's birth date, 4/24/89. It opened with a satisfying click. The contents took my breath away. 3 leather-bound journals, 2 external hard drives, 4 USB sticks, each carefully labeled. A laptop I recognized as Sophia's personal computer, not her work one. And on top, an envelope addressed simply, "Dad." With shaking hands, I opened the letter. "Dad, if you are reading this, something has happened to me. Everything you need to understand why is in these journals and drives. Be careful. Trust no one, especially not Adam. He is not who he pretends to be. I love you more than anything. I am sorry for putting you in danger. Sophia." I started with the journals, opening to the first entry dated approximately 1 year earlier. I found something concerning in Adam's private email today. Accidentally stumbled across it while using his laptop. Communications with a group I do not recognize, discussing what appears to be money movement through shell corporations. Large sums. When I asked him about it casually, he became immediately defensive, then dismissive, said it was just standard business practice. But his reaction felt wrong. Something is not right. The entries progressed, documenting a gradual unraveling of trust. Adam insisted I sign papers today, transferring my company assets to his management. He framed it as protection and streamlining our finances. When I hesitated, He reminded me of the prenuptial agreement that would leave me with nearly nothing if we divorced. His tone was light, but the threat was clear. Another entry, 3 months later. The verbal abuse has escalated. Today he called me stupid and naive for questioning a transaction to an offshore account. When I suggested we discuss it later, he slammed his fist on the table so hard a glass shattered, then immediately apologized, blamed work stress. This is becoming a pattern. The most disturbing entries were from the final months. Adam threatened Dad today. Not directly, but the message was clear. We were discussing my concerns about his business dealings, and I mentioned possibly talking to Dad about it. Adam said, "Your father is financially vulnerable, Sophia. His construction business is just one lawsuit away from bankruptcy. Would be a shame if someone decided to target him. I feel physically ill." And the final entry, dated just 1 week before her death. I confronted Adam with evidence of his money laundering operation. Mistake. He completely snapped, grabbed my wrists so hard they bruised, shoved me against the wall, said if I ever told anyone, he would destroy Dad first, then me. I need to protect the evidence I have gathered. The cabin is the only safe place. Adam has no interest in it, thinks it is worthless. I am changing my will tomorrow to ensure Dad gets the cabin. It is the only way to get the evidence to him if something happens to me. I sat back, nauseous and shaking. The journals confirmed my worst fears about Adam, but they also revealed something I had not understood before. Sophia had been protecting me all along, even at the cost of her own safety. Next, I turned to the laptop. It powered on immediately, already set to bypass the password screen. On the desktop was a folder labeled simply Evidence. Inside were hundreds of files meticulously organized by date and type. There were screenshots of banking transactions showing millions flowing through a complex network of shell companies, recorded phone conversations where Adam discussed what could only be described as money laundering with various associates, photographs taken of meetings with individuals later identified in attached files as members of known criminal enterprises. Most damning of all was a video file of Adam meeting with a mechanic in an underground parking garage, discussing what appeared to be modifications to brake lines. The date stamp was just 3 days before Sophia's accident. By midnight, I had reviewed enough evidence to understand the full scope of what Sophia had uncovered. Adam Porter was not merely controlling and abusive. He was a criminal who had built his fortune on fraud, money laundering, and connections to organized crime. And when Sophia threatened to expose him, he had silenced her permanently. As the reality of what had happened to my daughter sank in, I found myself overcome with a grief deeper than any I had known before, coupled with a rage so intense it left me breathless. But beneath those emotions was a steely resolve. Adam Porter would not get away with this, not while I still drew breath. The next morning, I forced myself to approach the remaining evidence methodically. The external hard drives contained backups of everything on the laptop, plus additional files too large for the computer's storage. Sophia had been nothing, if not thorough. I connected one of the USB drives to the laptop. It contained a video file dated 2 weeks before her death. When I clicked play, Sophia's face filled the screen. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her normally vibrant complexion pale, but there was determination in her gaze. "Dad, if you are watching this, it means I did not make it," she began, her voice steady, despite the gravity of her words. "I need you to know what has been happening and why I have been so distant lately." For the next 45 minutes, Sophia laid out a comprehensive account of her marriage to Adam, how the controlling behavior began subtly, with suggestions about her appearance or comments about her work, how it escalated to monitoring her communications, isolating her from friends, and eventually, physical intimidation. "But that is not why I fear for my life," she continued. 6 months ago, I discovered that Adam has been using my software company as a front for money laundering operations. He has connections with several organized crime syndicates, helping them clean money through a complex network of international transactions. She explained how she had accidentally discovered suspicious code embedded in the financial software her company had developed. Code that created untraceable backdoors for moving money. When she investigated further, she found evidence of hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through these channels. At first, I thought it must be a mistake, or perhaps the work of a rogue employee, Sophia said. But when I quietly investigated, all paths led back to Adam. He had been using me, my company, and my reputation for legitimacy all along. The most chilling part came next. I have been gathering evidence for months, documenting everything. I planned to take it all to the FBI, but then Adam made a threat I could not ignore. He said if I ever tried to leave him or expose him, he would destroy you first, Dad. He has the resources and connections to do it. That is when I realized I needed a contingency plan. She explained why she had changed her will, ensuring the cabin would go to me. Adam sees this place as worthless. He has no idea I have been using it as a secure location for all my evidence. The will change was the only way I could guarantee you would find this information if something happened to me. I requested specifically that the cabin go to you, knowing Adam's greed would lead him to take everything else without question. Tears filled her eyes. I am so sorry for putting you in this position, Dad, but you are the only person I trust completely. If I do not survive this, please take this evidence to FBI Special Agent Sandra Wilson in the Financial Crimes Division. Her contact information is in the files. She has been investigating Adam's associates for months, though she does not yet realize Adam is connected. The video ended with Sophia looking directly into the camera, her expression resolute despite the tears on her cheeks. I love you, Dad. No matter what happens, please know that everything I did to protect you. Be careful. Adam is dangerous and has people everywhere. The screen went black, leaving me in silence, tears streaming down my face. The remaining USB drives contained additional evidence, including emails showing Adam's offshore accounts hiding millions in illicit funds. One drive held a particularly disturbing set of photos documenting a meeting between Adam and two men identified in an attached file as members of a Russian crime syndicate. The meeting had taken place just 4 days before Sophia's death. Another file contained recorded conversations, secretly captured by Sophia using hidden devices. In one particularly damning recording, Adam could be heard clearly threatening Sophia. If you ever think about leaving me or talking to anyone about what you think you know, remember this. I will destroy your father first. One phone call, that is all it would take. His company will face lawsuits he cannot afford. His reputation will be ruined. And then, when he has lost everything, when he is broken and desperate, he will have an unfortunate accident, just like people who cross my associates tend to have. My blood ran cold, hearing the matter-of-fact way Adam described potentially killing me. This was not an empty threat from an angry spouse. This was a calculated warning from a man accustomed to using violence to solve his problems. The final piece of evidence was perhaps the most heartbreaking. A video message Sophia had recorded specifically about her decision to stay with Adam, despite knowing the danger. I considered running away, she explained, looking exhausted, taking Dad and disappearing. But Adam's resources are vast. His connections extend to law enforcement, private investigators, even some government officials. We would never be truly safe. She wiped away a tear. So I made the decision to stay and build my case methodically, to gather evidence so comprehensive, so irrefutable, that even Adam's connections could not save him. It is a dangerous game, and I know the risks, but it is the only way to ensure Dad remains safe in the long run. By late afternoon, I had reviewed all the digital evidence. The picture it painted was clear and terrifying. Adam Porter was not merely a controlling husband or a white-collar criminal. He was a dangerous man, with connections to organized crime, who had almost certainly murdered my daughter when she threatened to expose him. The question now was what to do with this information. Sophia had directed me to FBI agent Sandra Wilson, But after seeing the extent of Adam's connections, including his relationships with certain law enforcement officials, I hesitated. Who could I trust? How could I ensure this evidence reached the right people without putting myself in immediate danger? As darkness fell outside the cabin, I made my decision. I would follow Sophia's instructions explicitly. She had been methodical and careful in everything else. I had to trust that she had chosen Agent Wilson for good reason. I used the cabin's landline rather than my cell phone to make the call. After several transfers and a tense 5-minute wait, a woman's voice answered. "Special Agent Wilson." "My name is Curtis Holloway," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I am Sophia Porter's father. She told me to contact you if anything happened to her. I have evidence you need to see." There was a long pause before Agent Wilson replied, her voice cautious but interested. "Mr. Holloway, I have been investigating several individuals connected to financial crimes. Your daughter's name has come up in our research, but not as a suspect. Can you tell me more about this evidence?" "Not over the phone," I replied, "but I can tell you it concerns Adam Porter, his connections to organized crime, and his involvement in my daughter's death." Another pause. "I understand. We should meet in person, but not at your home or any place Adam might know about." We arranged to meet the following day at a federal building in Duluth, 3 hours from the cabin. Before ending the call, Agent Wilson gave me one final instruction. "Mr. Holloway, do not tell anyone about this conversation, and bring the original evidence with you. All of it." As I hung up, I felt a mix of relief and trepidation. The wheels of justice were beginning to turn, but I knew the most dangerous part of this journey still lay ahead. I barely slept that night, checking and rechecking the locks on the cabin doors. Every creak of the old building, every rustle in the surrounding forest, sent my heart racing. By dawn, I had packed all of Sophia's evidence into a secure bag and prepared to leave for Duluth. The federal building was an imposing structure of glass and concrete in downtown Duluth. After going through security, I was escorted to a conference room where Agent Sandra Wilson waited. She was younger than I had expected, perhaps in her early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a no-nonsense demeanor that I found reassuring. "Mr. Holloway," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "thank you for coming. I understand this must be difficult for you." I placed the bag containing Sophia's evidence on the table. "This is everything my daughter collected about Adam Porter and his operations. She was murdered because of what she discovered." Agent Wilson nodded grimly. "We have been investigating several financial institutions with suspected ties to organized crime. Your son-in-law's investment firm has come up repeatedly, but we have not been able to establish a direct connection. Until now." For the next several hours, I walked Agent Wilson and her team through Sophia's evidence. They examined the journals, the digital files, the recordings, and the photographs with meticulous attention to detail. Specialists were brought in to authenticate the digital evidence and ensure the chain of custody was properly established. "Your daughter did remarkable work," Agent Wilson told me, as they cataloged the materials. "This is more comprehensive than evidence gathered by professional investigators." She was very thorough. "Sophia was always methodical," I replied, a sad pride swelling in my chest. Once she committed to something, she saw it through completely. By late afternoon, the FBI team had reviewed enough evidence to take immediate action. Agent Wilson explained their next steps. "We have sufficient probable cause for search warrants for Adam Porter's residence, offices, and electronic devices. We will move quickly before he has any chance to destroy evidence." "What about my safety?" I asked. "Sophia's evidence suggests Adam has connections within law enforcement. How do I know I will be protected?" Agent Wilson's expression was solemn. "Your concerns are valid, Mr. Holloway. We have a small, vetted team working on this case precisely because of potential leaks. We would like to place you in protective custody until Adam Porter is apprehended." I shook my head. "No, I want to help bring him down. Sophia risked everything to gather this evidence. I need to see this through for her." After some discussion, Agent Wilson proposed a compromise. We could use your assistance in one specific way, if you are willing. We need to confirm certain aspects of Adam's involvement in your daughter's death. A recorded conversation would be extremely valuable evidence. You want me to wear a wire, I stated, understanding immediately. It would be dangerous, she acknowledged, but it might be our best chance to get direct evidence linking him to your daughter's murder. Without hesitation, I agreed. Tell me what I need to do. 2 days later, wearing a sophisticated recording device provided by the FBI, I met Adam at an upscale restaurant in San Francisco. The plan was simple, but risky. I would confront Adam with vague allegations, hoping to provoke a revealing response without tipping him off to the full extent of what I knew. Adam arrived 15 minutes late, his expression a practiced mix of condolence and mild annoyance. Curtis, I was surprised to get your call. I thought you would be up at that cabin for a while. I found some interesting things there, I said carefully, watching his reaction. Things Sophia left for me. A flicker of something crossed his face, quickly suppressed. Oh? What kinds of things? Information, I replied vaguely. About her concerns regarding your business practices. Adam's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. Sophia never understood the complexities of high-level finance. She was brilliant with software, of course, but business was never her strong suit. I leaned forward slightly. She understood enough to document it, Adam. Enough to be concerned about money moving through shell companies. His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Curtis, grief can make us see conspiracies where none exist. Sophia died in a tragic accident. Looking for someone to blame will not bring her back. Was it really an accident? I asked, my voice low but steady. Or did her brake lines just happen to fail at the most convenient spot on that coastal road? For a moment, rage flashed across Adam's face before he controlled it. You should be very careful about making accusations you cannot back up, Curtis. Grief is not an excuse for slander. I saw the bruises on her wrist at the funeral home, Adam. I know she was afraid of you. I know she was gathering evidence against you. He leaned back, his posture relaxed but his eyes cold as ice. Evidence of what exactly? You are an old man making wild claims based on misunderstandings and grief. Evidence of financial crimes. Evidence of your connections to organized crime. Evidence that she was planning to leave you. Adam's laugh was chilling in its insincerity. Curtis, this is absurd. I think you should go home and rest. Perhaps consider speaking with a grief counselor. I decided to take a calculated risk, pushing harder. She changed her will to make sure I got the cabin. She knew it was the one thing you would not care about, the one place she could hide the truth. Something dangerous flickered in Adam's eyes. And what truth would that be? That you tampered with her car. That you made sure those brake lines would fail at exactly the right spot. The mask slipped, just for a moment, as Adam leaned forward. If I had done something to her car, it would have been untraceable. Perfect. Just like everything else I do. He caught himself immediately, forcing a concerned expression. Which is why I know her death was just a tragic accident, Curtis. These conspiracy theories are not healthy, but it was too late. His momentary slip, that hypothetical phrasing, was exactly what the FBI needed. As Adam stood to leave, placing his napkin on the table with deliberate calm, 2 plainclothes agents approached from nearby tables. Adam Porter, one of them said quietly, showing his badge discreetly to avoid a scene. We need you to come with us for questioning in connection with the death of Sophia Porter and associated financial crimes. The look Adam gave me was one of pure hatred. You have no idea what you have done, old man, he hissed as the agents escorted him out. Within hours, FBI teams had executed search warrants on Adam's home, offices, and electronic devices. What they found exceeded even what Sophia had documented. Offshore accounts containing hundreds of millions in illicit funds, communications with known criminal organizations, and most damning of all, a deleted text exchange with a mechanic discussing a special job on Sophia's car, with a payment of $50,000 transferred the day after her death. News of Adam's arrest broke the following morning. Financial crimes initially took center stage in the reporting, but as details of Sophia's death investigation emerged, the story expanded into a sensational case of murder and international money laundering. More evidence surfaced in the following days. The mechanic who had tampered with Sophia's brake lines was located and offered testimony in exchange for leniency. Two of Adam's closest business associates also struck deals, providing additional details about his criminal network. Detective Jackson, who had initially investigated Sophia's death, was also arrested for obstruction of justice. Financial records showed he had received payments from one of Adam's shell companies. My testimony to the grand jury took place 3 weeks after Adam's arrest. For 4 hours, I detailed everything I had learned from Sophia's evidence and my own experiences. When asked why my daughter had gone to such lengths to document Adam's crimes rather than simply leaving him, I explained about his threats against me. She stayed to protect me, I told the silent jurors, my voice breaking. She endured his abuse and gathered evidence at enormous personal risk, all to ensure I would be safe when the truth finally came out. The grand jury indicted Adam on 27 counts, including first-degree murder, money laundering, wire fraud, tax evasion, and racketeering. As he was led into court for his arraignment, I sat in the front row, making sure he saw me. Our eyes met briefly, his filled with cold hatred, mine with the steady resolve to see justice done for my daughter. Adam's trial began 8 months after his arrest. By then, the prosecution had assembled an overwhelming case against him. In addition to Sophia's meticulously gathered evidence, they had testimony from the mechanic who had sabotaged her car, financial records documenting hundreds of millions in laundered funds, and statements from several of Adam's former associates who had turned state's evidence to save themselves. I attended every day of the 6-week trial, sitting in the same seat in the front row, a silent reminder of why we were all there. The prosecution presented a comprehensive timeline of Adam's criminal activities, from his earliest financial frauds to his escalating abuse of Sophia and ultimately his calculated decision to murder her when she threatened to expose him. When my turn came to testify, I spoke directly to the jury about the daughter I had lost. Not just her intelligence and accomplishments, but her compassion, her determination to use technology to help vulnerable people, her fundamental decency. Sophia stayed in a dangerous situation because she was gathering evidence, I explained, my voice steady despite my grief. She could have run, but she knew Adam would come after me if she did. Instead, she documented everything, created a secure record, and made sure that record would reach the right people if anything happened to her. As I described finding the evidence at the cabin, I could see several jurors wiping away tears. The defense attorney barely bothered to cross-examine me, knowing that challenging a grieving father would only damage their already weak case. The most powerful moment came when the prosecution played Sophia's video message in court. Seeing her face on the screen, hearing her voice explain the danger she faced, and her determination to protect me at any cost, brought the reality of what had been lost into sharp focus for everyone present. On the final day of the trial, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with their verdict: guilty on all counts. When the judge asked if Adam wished to make a statement before sentencing, he declined, his face an emotionless mask. "Mr. Porter," the judge said, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed courtroom, "you have been convicted of crimes that demonstrate a profound moral corruption. You abused and ultimately murdered a woman who trusted you, all to protect your criminal enterprise. You threatened her father. You corrupted officials sworn to uphold the law. You showed not a moment of remorse throughout these proceedings." She paused, looking at Adam over her glasses. "I sentence you to life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole for the murder of Sophia Porter. Additionally, you will serve consecutive sentences, totaling 120 years for your financial crimes." As Adam was led away, he glanced back once, his eyes meeting mine. I saw no remorse there, only cold fury at having been caught and convicted. I held his gaze steadily until he was gone from the courtroom. In the aftermath of the trial, The FBI recovered over $80 million of Adam's illicit funds. As Sophia's next of kin, I was legally entitled to a significant portion of these assets. After much consideration, I decided to use these funds to establish the Sophia Holloway Foundation, dedicated to two causes my daughter had cared deeply about: supporting survivors of domestic violence and promoting ethical technology. Money that was amassed through corruption will now serve the public good, I announced at the foundation's launch. Sophia would have wanted it that way. I renovated the cabin that had been so crucial to exposing Adam's crimes, transforming it into a retreat for domestic violence survivors. The peaceful setting in the Minnesota wilderness provided a safe haven where people could heal and rebuild their lives away from those who had harmed them. In the years that followed, I worked closely with law enforcement agencies, sharing Sophia's story to train detectives about the warning signs of domestic violence and the ways abusers isolate and control their victims. Agent Wilson became a close friend, visiting the cabin retreat several times a year to speak with residents about financial independence and safety planning. The healing process was slow and uneven. Some days, the grief would hit me with such force that I could barely breathe. Other days, I found a measure of peace in continuing the work Sophia had begun, using her foundation to support vulnerable populations and promote ethical standards in technology development. The phrase, "she did it to protect me," became both a painful reminder of what I had lost and a powerful motivation to help others. Sophia had sacrificed her safety and ultimately her life to ensure I would be protected from Adam. The best way to honor that sacrifice was to extend that protection to others in similar situations. 5 years after Adam's conviction, I sat on the dock at the cabin, watching the sunset over the lake where we had scattered Diana's ashes so many years ago. I felt a sense of peace that had been elusive since Sophia's death. "She did it to protect me," I whispered to the fading light. "And now I am doing what I can to protect others in her name." The Sophia Holloway Foundation had by then helped thousands of domestic violence survivors rebuild their lives. The Ethical Technology Initiative had established industry standards that made it harder for criminal enterprises to exploit software for money laundering and other illicit activities. Sophia's legacy lived on in every person whose life was improved through these efforts. The cabin, once just a simple family retreat, had become a symbol of hope and renewal, a place where secrets had been kept safe until truth could prevail, a place where healing now happened every day. As darkness fell over the lake, I realized that while the pain of losing Sophia would never completely fade, I had found purpose in continuing her mission of protection and compassion. Through helping others heal from trauma, I had begun to heal myself. I often wonder what you would think about your own life experiences. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was hiding something important from you? How did you handle that discovery? If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps spread awareness about domestic violence warning signs that could save lives. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the most important truths are hidden in places others consider worthless.